Hello, dear viewers. Today we have a very special guest. He is coming from Brazil, and he is a doctor of medicine. His name is Andrei Moreira. Welcome to Finland, and I heard that you have been starting with your trip, worldwide tour about lecturing. How it goes?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Timo. Yes, my name is Andrei Moreira. I live in Brazil, in Belo Horizonte, in the southwest of Brazil. And I've been studying Spiritism and the link between science and spirituality for more than 20 years. So nowadays, I usually give lectures in many countries about the link between Spiritism and many subjects of our society, especially those connected to the health area, which is my specialty.
Yes. Well, this is very interesting. I have seen a couple of your lectures about those specialties. But how did your story actually began? What kind was the family where you born, and how
So
everything
my family
starts?
is a traditional Catholic Brazilian family, and I felt myself as a spiritist from the early childhood. So I usually told my parents, "Oh, I'm a spiritist," and they looked at me like I strange because there's no spiritist in my family. But I have always felt reincarnation and all these subjects as very natural for me. When I was 16, I realized a spiritist center near my house, and then I started to study seriously this subject, and so this changed my life. I got to know the laws of life, the spiritual laws of life. I got to know Allan Kardec's books, which is the base of the Spiritism. And these books gave me a very wide understanding of life, of myself, of my society. And so from that moment on, I started studying, and I have never stopped. And so sometime later, I started to study medicine, and then I was already a spiritist at that time, and then I started to see lectures about spiritism and health on the Medical Spiritist Association, because in Brazil this is very well studied. And then I became a researcher in this field. So I've been studying for a long time, and nowadays I'm the president of the Medical Spiritist Association of Minas Gerais, which is my state in Brazil. And I've wrote some books about many subjects, and I started giving lectures in Europe 10 years ago. So every year I come to specific countries to give lectures. Here in Finland is the 50th time I come, because we have here a spiritist group in Vaxi, which is Vaxi, yeah, which is organized by Pekka Karakainen, and this group has invited me many years ago, and we have did some lectures and conferences here in Helsinki, and also in the small city, which is Vaxi.
If you think about your past and your childhood, and those times when you get known with these spiritual things, how did it all happen? What was the first spark for those spiritual things? How it happened?
In Brazil, we had a very famous medium called Francisco Cândido Xavier, which we called like Chico Xavier. It's how he is known in Brazil. This medium has produced a lot. He has psychographed more than 500 books. He has lived a very charitable life. He has given all the rights of these books to charity, and he was a great example for us. He's a reference in Spiritism in Brazil. So my first memory from the early childhood is seeing him on TV and feeling something very deep. I had a connection, I had a symphony with that kind of thought, of a life, and that's how everything began.
And in some point you found those Allan Kardec's books, or was there something between those? What was influencing your worldview that it came as a spiritual?
Yes, when I started studying Spiritism at the Spiritist Center, so I found the books of Allan Kardec. Allan Kardec published the Spiritist book, which was the first one and the base of Spiritism. It's a book that we have translated into Finnish already. And this book gave me many answers. It's composed by more than 1,000 actually, questions and answers. The questions from Allan Kardec and the answers from many spirits about many topics, many subjects, from God to the loss of life, society, and understand of reincarnation and our spiritual nature and moral and social things. So I started studying this book deeply, from one to another, the Spiritist book to the Gospel according to the Spiritism, another book from Allan Kardec, to the Medium's book, a very deep book about mediumship, from this to Heaven and Hell, which is an amazing book where Kardec discusses theological subjects and also the nature of many spirits. Especially he presents in this book 6 experience with spirits in his spiritual work in Paris at that time. And he shared with us the nature of these spirits, what they found in the afterlife, when they got there, different kind of spirits, spirits that commit suicide, happy spirits, neutral spirits, spirits that are unhappy. So he separated into many specific titles, these spirits, and he presents us their own experience. So we got to know the nature of the afterlife and the effects of our daily lives and our present choice to our future in the spiritual world and also in other incarnations. And from this book I started to study another one which is called Genesis. It's a book where Allan Kardec studied the nature of Earth and also the nature of the human being, the energetic nature of human being, fluidotherapy, and many other subjects. So all these books together, plus those psychographed by Chico Xavier and other authors, gave me a very good understanding of life and another point of view of myself, of my society, and also of my practical profession, because this gave me another vision about medicine.
Yes, other side of medicine that nowadays we are thinking about that the life, a human being is physical and spiritual being and has also social levels. So we are a quite big combination of different things, and now you have also found this spiritual side from people. And have you found something what is most interesting for you in this spiritual life and this kind of things?
Is the comprehension that we are immortal spirits. Spiritism told us and tell us that we are spirits, and as a spirit we are a divine creation. So we have an evolutionary path that we perform individually and as a collective group, from the simplicity and ignorance to the perfection, and this happens through many incarnations, through many spiritual and material lives. So this understand that we are immortal spirits change the perspective of our life, because we come to understand that we are not matters that have soul. We are spirits that are on the matter. So that's changed everything. We are not identified with the matter, but we are identified as immortal spirits. So when we understand that, we change our lives to a better situation, because we understand that death is not the end. It's part of life. It's not the opposite of life, but it's a stage of life that only changes the forms but does not change the content. We continue our individuality in the afterlife. We continue our ideas, our feelings. So we continue our life as we had here. So this understanding make us more conscious about ourselves. If you think about medicine or health subjects, so you understand that we are not only this matter. So we have to give value to the body and to all his manifestations, for sure, but we are much more than this matter. We are spirits, and the spirit control the body through mental and emotional waves, through his own choices. When we get to know that, we can change the way our body functions by changing ourselves, by changing our mental content, by changing our inner reality. And that changes everything. So we can use all the progress that medicine has to offer us, but we also can use the spiritual tools, and we have a lot of them that we can use in our daily lives in order to have a better life.
Yes. If we think about your personal journey with this spiritual life, has all those information and knowledge came from the books, or have you something own personal experience which has been convincing you that the spiritual life exists and so on?
Yes, I have had many personal experiences. I'm a medium myself, so my mediumnity started to manifestate when I was a child, but it has grown during the teenage times, when I was a teenager, so my adolescence. And at that time I got to know Spiritism, and so I understood everything that was happening with me. So I have had many beautiful experiences with the spirits. I have received some simple but meaningful books for me, and this gave me a very good experience with the spirits, especially one called Dias da Cruz. He is a spiritual physician as well, and he has guided me for many years, and he has taught me many things.
Do you still recall those very first spiritual experience what you had in childhood?
It's very interesting, because mediumship does not start as something very big. It's like sometimes, we can have some great manifestations, but when this happens during the childhood or the adolescence, this naturally begins to increase, and sometimes we have a spiritual experience that we do not perceive that were spiritual experience. When someone, for example, perceives a spirit or hear a spirit or has some feeling or intuition, that was what happened with me. I had sensations, intuitions, perceptions that I did not realize at that time that was the expression of mediumship. I thought it was normal. I thought it was something that everybody had, because it was not something very big. It was simple. It was natural for me. But when I become a teenager, and then things start to grow and start to be more deeper. But it was at the same time that I got to know Spiritism, so I could direct my energy to educate the mediumship. Because mediumship, it's nothing more than a natural ability that every one of us have to perceive the spiritual world and the interaction between us and the spirits. Every person is a medium, because every one of us can perceive the thoughts and feelings from the spirits. It can be influenced, and we can allow ourselves to feel that. But the vast majority of person does not realize the influence of the spirits in their daily lives. They think that kind of feeling or thought from their own, and they do not get to know that comes from the spiritual world, because this is a very natural interaction. So those that we usually call medium are people that have this sensibility more extended, and so can perceive the spirits in a more deeper way. And there's a lot of different kind of mediumship. So in my case, I start to perceive the presence of this spiritual guide in my thoughts and in my feelings, and this starts to grow, and I start to educate this mediumship, and I start to write, and so things have grown naturally and directed to a spiritual work. So there was a purpose for that, and I learned what does it mean.
Yeah. So you are seeing some inner visions, and you can feel the presence of some spiritual beings front of you, around you. And do you see, let's say that in your concretical eyes, that some visions in your eyes, or are they always inner visions?
I do not see in my daily lives. I only see when I am in trance during our mediunic sessions, and it can be a vision like we have in our everyday life, but can be an inner vision. This changes. Sometimes it's inner vision. Sometimes we can see outside of us like a very clear image. It can be like a wall or a scene that you see from outside. It can be something that you see and you feel part of it. So the mediunic perceptions are very different one to another. Yeah. Allan Kardec has studied that and has presented the nature of mediumship and how to educate mediumship in the Medium's book. Another one that is already translated in Finnish, and in this book he describes many types of mediumship and what does it mean and how to educate, and what he has learned from the spirits that oriented the beginning of the Spiritism, which is a source of wisdom, a source of a very good spiritual knowledge. So I've been studying this book for a long time. This allowed me and the others that are with me in the same group of study to understand all these manifestations and to do the best with this. So we got to know that mediumship and the spiritual abilities are not for our amusement and not for our curiosity. These are spiritual sensibility that should be used for goodness. It's a field to serve life. mediumship is an opportunity to serve life, because we receive the communication from the good spirits for free. We should give for free. We should share with those that are beside us. That's the main point of mediumship, is to give humanity instruction, knowledge about spiritual reality, and to allow us to understand that we are spiritual beings. As spirits, we are immortal, and we should live as immortal spirits. We should prepare ourselves for that.
Well, this sounds very fascinating, and I have been thinking about lots about those mediumship and what it should teach to the people, and I agree what you say about this. If we're thinking about your mediumship and your being doctor, how you doing this work in your daily life back in Brazil?
As a professional.
Yes, as a professional, how you combine those two things, being a medium and also doctor?
Yeah, when I am at my office, I'm not medium. I'm only the doctor with the patient, and I cannot use mediumship during my professional practice, daily practice, because my patient did not come for that, and medical professional does not allow this kind of situation. So during my daily office and practice, I look for the patient. I understand the patient as a spiritual being. So I stimulate spirituality. I try to understand if that person has a religion or a personal spirituality, and I interact with the person in his own belief. But we have the Medical Spiritist Association, which is association where we study the link between science and medicine, medicine and spiritism. And at this association, or at the medical spiritist hospitals that we have in Brazil, we can combine those two fields, giving the medical treatment and what we call complementary therapy, which consists in the passes, or what we call passes in Portuguese, and in English it is magnetic healing, the imposition of hands, where we share energy, and it's like a transfusion of energy and vitality by using magnetic water, which is the water that has energy given by us or by the spirits, and prayer, meditation, and also sessions of what we call disobsession, which is spiritual treatment for those spirits who are connected to us and have a negative link with us. So obsession is a term that Allan Kardec presented to us, that means the domination or the control that some spirits can have of anyone, when this person allow these spirits to dominate by affinity, by syntony, so allowing another will to control. So in this Medical Spiritist Association, we can combine these two therapies, but this is not a professional field. This is a voluntary field. So this complementary work we give for free. We do not receive anything for that. We only receive something that we work as a professional. But this voluntary work, we do it for free. These are meetings at night that we have in Brazil in our free time after our job has done.
Well, it sounds like that your working days will be very long.
Yes, they are very long.
Well, it's an interesting thing it is that you can combine those two things. I'm just wondering that is this being a psychic allows you to do diagnosis, example for looking people's aura or something like that, or does it give some exact details to your skill about patient who is coming to ask your help?
So this integration between Spiritism and medicine give us a different point of view of sickness and of the person who is sick. So we understand that mental disease or physical disease are the expression of the spirit. This allows us not only to give the medical approach, but also the spiritual approach to that kind of disease. And this is much more profound than only approaching the physical matter. So in Brazil we have, for example, the Spiritist hospitals. These are hospitals that give the medical treatment as any other hospital, but has this complementary therapy. For example, in Belo Horizonte we have the Psychiatric Spiritist Hospital André Luiz. Our Medical Spiritist Association is connected to this hospital.
Yeah.
It's not the same institution, but we are very close friends. And we have a voluntary work there at the hospital as well. And at this hospital, the patient can come and sign if he accepts or not the complementary therapy. If he accepts, he will receive. If he does not accept, he won't receive that therapy. If he's not able to sign, the family sign for him. But someone has to accept that complementary therapy. And that allows us to have, for example, mediunic approach of that patient. Sometimes a patient doesn't get better with medical treatment, and the problem is an obsessive problem, is a spiritual problem. And then in our mediunic sessions we can look what is happening, understand what kind of connection there is, and give the approach that is necessary, not only for that incarnate person, that person that is asking for help, but also for the spirit that is connected to that person. Because the spirits are as humans as we are. They are as natural as we are. They deserve and they need spiritual treatment the same way that we need. So they are not people that were created for good or for evil, as some beliefs understand, but they are human beings as we are, out of the matter. And they have connections with us that come from the past or from the present. And usually these are connections from what we have lived together, what we have done together, or emotional or love connections that have become sick. So they need to be addressed as well as the incarnated person.
Yeah. Basically, you are thinking in this center that every disease might have a spiritual background back in past life, example, which is coming.
Yes, some of these connections come from the past life, some come from this present life.
Yeah.
From the past life, we have usually the emotional connection, because in each incarnation we face the consequences of what we have done in the past.
Yes.
So today we found, for example, incarnate with us in our family, in our society, those who have connection with us and those that we need to deal with, to relate, to have a relationship, and to educate ourselves for love. But we also find in the spiritual world those who are not incarnated but have connection with us. Those who love us, those who were relatives from other lives, those who were our victims, those who suffered from something from us, and those who received good from us, and many good things. So we have the spirits that protect us, we have familiar spirits, we have spiritual guides that take care of us and are responsible for our incarnation, to guide, to suggest, to give us intuition. And we also have those who seek for vengeance, who seek for justice in their own hands, who are addicted to us in some sense, cannot be disconnected because there's a strong bond, a strong connection, usually an emotional or mental connection. So there are a lot of different things of spiritual interaction. What we call obsession are the connections that are not good, that become controlled from the spirit to us, or from us to that spirit, because the obsession can be from an incarnated to a discarnated person as well. And we need to understand that, and we need to address that by changing ourselves. If we change our syntony, we change the nature of the spirits that are beside us, because we are not victims anytime.
Yes.
We are only attracted those who are in syntony with us, who are in tune with us. If we change the way we think, the way we feel, if we change our acts, our speech, if we change from the inner to the outside acts, our nature, so we change the nature of the spirits that are beside us. And that that provides us a very good opportunity to grow.
Oh. Well, it's fascinating. If we are thinking about, you have probably heard many times about this, that Joao, the medium from Brazil, also doing those spiritual healings. In your center, do you do those spiritual surgery?
No, we do not have a spiritual surgery as John of God does. He has a very specific work, which is a spiritualistic work. In Spiritism, we have spiritual surgery that do not use cut in the matter. This means direct intervention from the spirits in our spiritual body, and make it very good and deep surgeries, but they do not use the same methodology. And above all, Spiritism is a process of self-education, of understanding of life. So the main spiritual surgery that we need is the inner transformation, is to become better persons. And for that, we need to understand the life in another point of view. We need to understand that we are immortal spirits, and balance our life to this reality by changing ourselves and becoming better persons, become persons that express the virtues that are the nature of the divine being that we are. So in our spiritist approach, we give this educational process while the person is receiving the magnetic healing or the disobsession process or many other things. So we suggest the person, we stimulate the person to pray, because prayer is a strong connection with our divine nature. So we suggest the person to have a very spontaneous prayer, which is a relationship with God, which is a relationship with her inner reality. And we suggest the person to become involved into charitable situations or actions, because when we do goodness, we become more better persons. So this is what we call spiritual treatment in our spiritist societies. Complementary therapy, from fluidotherapy that the knowledge of Spiritism teach us, besides educational process that allow us to understand our immortal nature and balance our life to this reality.
Well, sounds very reasonable way to see the world. How you define to yourself what is role of intuition if we are thinking about human's life? What is purpose for intuition? What it gives to human?
The intuition. The intuition gives us an opportunity to become in contact with ourselves and with those that guide us from the high spaces of life. Intuition is a manifestation of the divine on us. So we need to be self-centered. We need to be connected with ourselves in order to find a space of silence and of calm inside of us to perceive the ideas and the feelings that come from those that love us. We should improve that by prayer, because when we pray, we elevate the level of our energy, of our vibration, and we allow those that are in a high expression of life to be in tune with us more easily. What usually happens is that we elevate our vibration by prayer, by meditation, and they come to our level, and then we establish a strong connection that allow us to perceive things more easily and more naturally. So intuition is a very important process that we should increase in our daily lives by a process of self-knowledge, of contact with our divine nature.
How you define a human being as a spiritual person? Do you believe, like Paul Brunton's was writing in his book about higher self, that everybody has a so-called higher self and you can be contacted to your higher self? Do you believe these kind of things, or how you define human being as a spiritual person?
So we are spiritual beings, and as a spiritual beings, we evolve. We have this evolutionary path from the simplicity and ignorance to the perfection. This is a natural and progressive path. In each step, we become more aware of our possibilities and our responsibilities. So each one of us has a divine guidance inside of us. Allan Kardec has asked the spirits about where the divine law is situated on us, and they said it's on the consciousness. That means inside of ourselves there is the perception of the law of God, and everything that is divine is in ourselves. So there's a very deep space on us that never gets sick. It's this divine nature that some people call that higher self, that some studies in psychology call the self, and that's something that we need to be in contact with. And we can do that by intuition, by meditation, by being self-centered and connecting this divine and profound nature that is inside of each one of us. This allows us to balance the ego and the self. The ego is the present manifestation of the being that we are, with our imperfection, with our projections, and with our shadow, those things that are not loved yet, are not developed yet, with ourself, our divine nature that is in constant pulsion and in constant manifestation, in order to approach one from another, to evolve, to progress. actually, to progress our ego till he reach the point of an integration with selves. That happens with time, that happens with many incarnations. But in each incarnation, we can make this distance lower, and we can establish points of contacts between the ego and the self, and receive the information and the perception of what we need for that moment of life, from that point of our life on, to continue progressing and activating the divine conditions of life.
Some people says that ego is kind of block of for spiritual developing. What is ego's role, if you think about it? Things.
The ego is necessary and natural. It's a part of our incarnation process. It's a manifestation of our temporarily personality and our projections while we are connected to a specific family, society, and human expression. What we need is to decrease the distance between the ego and the self by identifying them, and that is made by self-knowledge. Okay. When we get to know ourselves and we became more transparent. It's like a window. A window can be totally blocked and you cannot see something that is on the inside, but can be so transparent that you cannot see the glass that is on the window. It's like this. The ego, it's like a window that protects our inner home. It's part of our temporary manifestation in each incarnation. But we need to make this protection so transparent that through this ego we can access the self, or we can see the nature of the self, which is the divine being that we are.
Well, interesting. If we're thinking about spiritual developing, what you see that is most challenging things in a way when people developing, what is most biggest challenge for spiritual developing for people?
The most challenging thing is to become responsible for yourself. We used to hide from ourselves by feeling victim from the others, from the situations, and this is a loss of time. While we spend our time thinking of the responsibility of others in our life, we do not become aware and empowered to transform our reality. But when we become responsible for ourselves, when we get to know that we are the ones that construct our own lives for the good or for the evil, we are responsible for our happiness or for our difficulties, so we can face this process of self-knowledge and self-superation, and to transform ourselves and to look for the plenitude. The plenitude is the finding of the meaning of life. Yes, when we become aware, responsible, and connected to ourselves in order to develop our virtues that produce this state of plenitude, this state of joy of living. This is a result of a deep contact with our virtues and our ability to love, because love is the essence of life.
Yes.
So whenever we face our responsibilities and our abilities to goodness, then we become more conscious about our divine possibilities, and this makes us more happy.
Yes, it sounds so. What is Brotherhood Without Borders or Limits? Pekka Kaarakainen thought something about it. Can you tell more about it?
Yes, with pleasure. So Fraternity Without Borders is a non-governmental organization which I take part as a voluntary and as a director nowadays, that takes care of more than 9,000 children, orphanage children actually, in Mozambique, in the south of Africa. Wonderful. And more than 1,000 children in Madagascar. So this is a Brazilian non-governmental organization that has started to work on Africa 6 years ago by building welcome centers where children come, spend the middle of the day, the other half they are on the school, and in this time they receive food, hygiene, educational process, and also cultural project through music, which is a very important and powerful tool in Africa to express emotion and to develop a person. Not only in Africa, all over the world, but especially there, they use the music to talk, to express what they feel, what they think. So we use music to progress the abilities of each one and the contact of each one with themselves. So this organization takes care of all these children. All their work is voluntarily. So we go to Africa 3 or 4 times a year, sometimes more than this. And we spend some days there in a volunteer work, giving medical, educational and others works to the society. And it's a very divine project. For me it was a gift to be involved with this, because this work allows the better of me to come to the surface.
Well,
yes, as all process that involve goodness. While we are doing goodness, we connect to the better in ourselves. That's probably why Gandhi said that the better way to find ourselves is to lose ourselves serving others. I just understood this teaching of Gandhi when I started to work 3 to 4 years ago with this organization. While we are doing goodness, while we are sharing our love, the better of us comes. So we start to get to know us better. We start to find a space of calm and a space of compassion, of kindness inside of ourselves. We forget our pain because we see a lot of pain much worse than ours. We start to forget our conflicts because we start to find the virtues inside of us, and also we receive from them much more than we give. Because that's what happens when we do goodness. The gratitude comes as a response, and it becomes an exchange of love, an exchange of good situations. So I understood what Gandhi said. And this non-governmental organization work in Mozambique and in Madagascar, and now it's gonna start to work on Kenya and other countries as well, to provide children care and opportunity to grow. It's not an organization that only gives food to people. It's an organization that provides human development by trusting in them, by giving them opportunity, and as they have lots of abilities, they grow and they become persons that can deal with their own situation and can handle their society and progress. So that's what this organization is looking for.
Well, you are a real role model for many people, I believe. So charity work is very important in these kind of times, no matter where you are, because charity work is always found those people who needs it. We just sometimes cannot ask, but everybody.
I think that fraternity is the religion that we need in our world.
Yes.
Love.
So.
Yes. No matter what kind of religion we have, or if you don't have any religion, no matter what kind of color skin we have or what country we live, we are all human beings. We are all family. We are all connected through this that we call humanity. We are all one family. And if we look one to another, and if we find a way to share what we have, we won't have a fame. We won't have this suffering in our society. So, charity is not a path to receive presents from God, to receive benedictions from God, blessings from God, but it's a path to exchange our divine nature and our human nature. So by being fraternal, by looking to the other as a brother or a sister, so we can extend our family and we can improve our society and with the better of each one.
Yes. Would you like to say something until we stop this interview? Something perhaps for audience, what is in your mind at the moment? And, so
I would like to share that for Spiritism, love is the essence of life. Love is the meaning of life. So we should learn to love. We should contact love inside ourselves. We look for love outside of us, but we are source of love. So we can give, we can share, we can spread love around us by doing our better, by connecting to our spiritual nature and allowing this spiritual nature to be expressed, to be manifested through love. That's the meaning of life, to serve through love. When we serve, when we love, we find the joy of living, we find the meaning of life, we live a life with plenitude. And that's what we need nowadays. We live in a so materialistic society, so hedonistic society that cannot give us answers for our conflicts and for our needs. Our deep needs can only be satisfied by love, by exchanging love in many and any situations that we can in our lives. And when we understand that we are immortal, that death is not the end, that our beloved ones don't die, that we will continue living and we will keep our individuality and face the responsibility of our own choices, so we can choose now the better for us and for our society. We can seed love, and those who seed love find love around them, and this become the joy of life.
Well, very lovely life for you, and it was my pleasure and honor to meet you.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
you.